Jesus probably wasn't born in Bethlehem, and we're talking like archaeology level evidence. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. But the text of the Bible itself is problematic before we even get to the archaeological evidence. So everywhere that Jesus is referred to as having an origin, except for Matthew and Luke, and we're not talking just the other gospel writers, but other parts of the Bible, Jesus is called Jesus of Nazareth. Not Jesus of Bethlehem, not Jesus of Galilee. Clearly, the writers thought of him as being from Nazareth, and the only two people that mention Bethlehem are Matthew and Luke. But that's not super problematic, but there's a lot more. So Matthew and Luke clearly have an agenda in their writing. Both of them are focusing highly on Jesus fulfilling prophecies. And there was a really clear prophecy about where the Messiah was going to be born, and that was in Bethlehem. And so Matthew and Luke, who are really focused on showing how Jesus fulfills messianic prophecies, have to find a way to get Jesus to Bethlehem. So Matthew doesn't even try. Matthew just goes from the announcement of Jesus' birth to Joseph to saying, and after Jesus was born in Bethlehem. But Luke actually comes up with a story that it's like the stories that kids come up when they're trying to convince you that they didn't do something. It just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't match the facts at all. So Luke tells a story of a census that needs to happen, and the census obviously is what they are, is an accounting of where people live so that they can figure out taxes. And it says that the census was done by Caesar Augustus, and that for the census to be counted, they have to go to their hometown, to the origin of their birth. Now, a couple of things. That's a really horrible way to do a census, because the point of a census is figuring out where everybody lives. And if you tell them to move from where they live to go and be counted somewhere else, that doesn't make sense. And while Caesar Augustus has all kinds of problems with them, figuring out how to tax people and how to count people is not one of them. But there's a bigger problem with this. We have records from the reign of Caesar Augustus, and this kind of a census would be noted in those records, and it's not. Like, it's not in the historical record. Scholars are really confident in saying, like, that just never happened. Matthew does a similar thing, not with Bethlehem, but with Egypt. There's this prophecy that he wants to have fulfilled of Jesus coming out of Egypt. And so after all the stuff happens with the Magi, Jesus' family flees to Egypt, settles there, lives there, and then comes back. But that is in nowhere in any of the records, and that would be a really interesting thing for other people to say. But I know, I promised archaeology, and that's where everything really breaks down. Bethlehem, that is referenced in the Bible, it just doesn't show any evidence that it was occupied in the first century when Jesus was around. It's just not there. People don't live there during that time, and so nobody would be able to travel there or go there or be born there because no one lived there. But here's the thing. That contradiction does not mean that the Bible isn't reliable or that Jesus wasn't born or any of that kind of stuff. It really reflects a difference in historical values or historian values. So right now, historians are really focused on, the accuracy of history is focused on getting the exact events right in the right order, in the right place, exactly as they were. That is how historians value accurate history. In the ancient world, that wasn't the case. In the ancient world, in this part of the world, histories were supposed to tell you truths. We're supposed to tell you about the nature of existence and why things happened the way that they did. And so historians would use all kinds of things, among them the things that actually happened, primarily what actually happened, to tell you the truth about events, about people. That's what Matthew and Luke are doing. They're trying to show you the truth, that they honestly believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the one that's prophesied. And so they're crafting the story of Jesus' life to highlight that fact. Mark and John aren't as concerned with that. That's why they don't even have birth narratives in part. But Matthew and Luke are really trying to do that. And so it makes sense that when they are crafting the story, when they are painting the history of Jesus' life with those other historical values, that they are going to really highlight this place of Jesus' birth as being Bethlehem because that is where everybody thought the Messiah would be born. Side note, it is funny how a lot of more conservative churches that take the Bible literally actually mash these two stories together to show them as a single narrative, which can't happen. The manger scene can't happen because the Magi have to travel and they are probably not there until years later in that story. But it underlies this bigger frustration. And the thing that we've got to let go of with these stories and with the Bible itself, a couple of things. Number one, the Bible's not univocal. Each book is written from a very specific perspective that is trying to tell you a very specific truth. And you've got to take the books on their own terms and find the deeper truths that they're trying to say, right? The Bible doesn't speak with one voice. And to try to unify it into speaking with one voice actually takes some of the really important truths about that you can glean from these sacred texts and throws them away because you don't get the unique perspectives. And then the second thing is, you don't need to take the Bible literally. Don't take the Bible literally, take the Bible seriously. There's a t-shirt of that. You can get the link in my bio, but you don't need to take the Bible literally. You need to take it seriously because when you take it seriously, you can find all of the deep truths that have been informing and shaping the lives of people throughout history without stumbling over the problematic archaeological evidence of some things. The biblical truth here, the one that these writers are trying to highlight, the one that has been informing people's lives for years and years, is this idea that Jesus was incarnate, that Jesus lived as a human, and that because Jesus lived as a human, he understands what the struggle is. He understands what it's like. And when Jesus offers teachings and insights, that it doesn't come from some random God in the sky. It comes from someone who lived and struggled as a human, just like you and me, who was born just like we were.